You you forgot something.
Yeah, I had to go downstairs and get my headband with little dreidels on them. So there we are, wearing my doofy little headband.
We've got an important member chat already, Vish. Welcome
back,
Redeem. Good to see you, Redeem. Dr. Kiptifer, what does BBY stand for?
Baby. That's what I'm saying. I don't know.
Baby. Yeah, that works. I'm happy. I'm happy to go with baby. What did McCain say every day when he started working on his commentary? See, this is where I need a drum roll. Let's roll. And if you're a Jeremiah nerd like Simone, then you understand that one. John Gooderham was first today. Sarah was not, but that's fine. Hello. She is a headless chicken. And we already said hi to Vadim, and Prixie is here. And we said hi to Simone. Brendan Runyon is here. Time to learn cool shit. Yes, that's right. Becca Boo Eller, good to see you. Jason Hare is here today. It's so early. Oh, I mean, I guess if you're accustomed to just hanging out in the Hebrew streams, it could feel like that. But this is truth be told, Vish and I have been streaming at 2:00 on Friday afternoon for probably every week for probably like 3 straight months is my guess. Seem about right, Vish? We might have missed one or two there, but this is become a thing. And I like it. I hope y'all like it. So the weirdo, CKA Evan, is here. Arrow Dodger. No, I am not. I am not bald. Ryan Donovan is here. Burkate. I don't know if I've seen you around before, but it's good to have you here. So welcome. Noise Ending is here, showing off that fancy new channel membership. This is the Weasels, who are a co-host of mine for another show, Vish. I think you're familiar with them. Every now and then, very generously drops channel memberships in these parts, and we are eternally grateful. Archival Blob, thank you for the super chat. Jeremiah time, hot take va, indeed. And I feel like I have been neglectful.
I can say, Ahavtika, I love you.
I just haven't been hitting those buttons enough lately. What can I say?
It's not family, it's clan. Mishkapet,
y'all. So and maybe Mishkapet. So maybe I'll be I got because I know this one is absolutely your favorite.
Are there female rabbis?
It's just, in those moments when people tell on themselves in front of the entire world, right? For everyone to see. It's just it's fun. It's nice. So the holidays are upon us, everyone. And
which holidays?
Listen, all of them. All the holidays.
Which ones?
Christmas is coming. Hanukkah is here. Sol Invictus is around this time, and there's probably the winter solstice is just around the corner.
Diwali
and New Year's is coming. I just firmed up my my New Year's plans. I'm going to be blowing this popsicle stand on the 26th, and going and hanging out in my hometown with friends and family. I will probably when I'm in Calgary over the holidays get together at some point and have dinner with Dave from
Toast to toast.
Toast to Toast fame. Yep, we did it
Mhm.
last year. It was super fun. We'll do it again this year. So I'm excited about that. And yeah, so it is the time. Now, I feel a little bit sheepish today as I was talking to Vish about this. I've been a little self-conscious about this. I did a stream yesterday. Archival Blob says Christians and stubbornly refusing to learn anything about Judaism. Name a more iconic duo.
Seriously.
It's true. It's very true. So I feel a little bit. I'm sensitive about this. I did a stream yesterday on Deconstruction Zone with Justin. It was fantastic. He asked me a few weeks ago to give a presentation on his channel about the composition of the Book of Jeremiah, and I'm all about that shit. I mean, I don't know if you knew this, Vish, but I've
Don't you
written.
fucking love the Bible?
I fucking love the Bible. I've written some books, and I did my PhD dissertation on traditions of Jeremiah, which importantly are grounded in the Book of Jeremiah and factor in consistently to the compositional history of the Book of Jeremiah. So it just listen, I get excited. I get really excited when anybody asks me to talk about the Book of Jeremiah, the compositional history of the Book of Jeremiah, the Dead Sea Scrolls, and the evidence at Qumran for the Book of Jeremiah. This is all right up my alley. So I spent days putting together a presentation, and I gave it yesterday on Justin's channel. And it's I I wanted something to do today, but I have nothing prepared. So I just decided, you know what? As I've come to discover with all things in life, it's always the best. It's always better the second time around. I think that's always true. Isn't it always true? Pretty sure it's always true, right? So that's what we're doing today. Now, um, I know that a bunch of you guys tune in to watch me while you're at work. So I I don't feel too bad about the fact that I'm giving a recycled presentation today for our show. And I hope you enjoy it, even though it's not new. So yeah, see, there we go. Jason Hare is tuning in from work right now. In fact, Jason and I did a stream once while he was at work. It was pretty fun. Oh, Al. Oh, isn't that work though, Al? Sorry. Al says it's hard to be tuned in when driving. I thought that was work though. But yeah. So here we are. Maybe I should just get started. If any of you were tuned in yesterday, then I hope it, hearing something the second time is always better as well, because you're going to pick up things that you might have missed. And if you had questions yesterday that you didn't get a chance to ask, now is your chance. It's good. It's good for everyone. And I'll stop yammering. And we're going to talk about the fascinating, the amazing Book of Jeremiah. If you don't know, I've said this before, I've made this point before. The Book of Jeremiah is the largest of all the books in the Hebrew Bible, and that must mean that it is the best book, because that is how these things work. Um, And the book of Jeremiah, for a long time now, scholars, readers, keen observers have recognized that it's got an incredibly rich and complex compositional history. Most notably, the Septuagint version of the book of Jeremiah. This is the Greek translation of the book of Jeremiah that was composed at some point in antiquity, probably some point before the 1st century CE, is 13% shorter than the version that was preserved by the Masoretes in the Masoretic text. Sorry. Can you put that one back up? I wanted to read it. Oh, hope the good stuff is in the first hour so I can ask questions before I have to leave. I hope so. I actually it's not better than Leov though. Wow. Eov. Sorry, that's not an L. That's an I. It's not better than Eov. Well, I do beg to differ, but here we are. And as for questions, yeah, ask them as you think of them, and we'll try to get to them. Unfortunately, all the manuscript stuff is towards the end, but we'll skip through some of this stuff a little bit more quickly. Yes, it's good to see you, by the way, Ryan. Yes, Job. That is the book of Job. So we've already known for a long time about the complex compositional history of the book of Jeremiah. Not only is the Septuagint version quite a bit shorter, it is also in a dramatically different order. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. But for starters, I'm just going to give you kind of a sketch of how the internal composition of this text seems to work. When scholars talk about composition in the book of Jeremiah, conventionally, we often talk about 3 stages. Most identify it as Jeremiah A, Jeremiah B, and Jeremiah C. And the Jeremiah A layer is potentially material that dates back to the prophet Jeremiah himself. The prophet Jeremiah was born according to his own testimony. He was born still during the reign of King Manasseh, widely regarded by the writers of the Hebrew Bible to be the worst king ever. After the death of Manasseh, his son Amon ruled for 2 years, and he was assassinated. And then Josiah was installed as a child by people in the priesthood, and Jeremiah lived through and ministered, prophesied during the rule of Josiah, and then his son and heir Jehoiakim, and then his grandson Jehoiachin, and his other son Zedekiah.
I know you didn't just say chin.
I did.
Come on.
Jehoiakim. Jehoiakim. There we go.
Chin. This is why
Chin.
it sucks.
Jehoiakim.
Latin-
There we go.
The Latin alphabet is just not appropriate for translation
really
in Hebrew
is
because it leads to
not.
stuff like the book of Job.
Yeah, it's true.
Chet.
True.
The Hebrew letter chet.
The Hebrew letter chet. So I didn't want anybody to get lost. Okay.
Okay.
That was an accommodation. So Jeremiah was active for a long time, and he was active at this pivotal time in Judean and Jewish history, the Yehoiachin, God will prepare.
Mhm.
Yes. Thank you, Jason. The active at this pivotal time when the kingdom of Judah came to an end. The city of Jerusalem was sacked and destroyed by the Babylonians. The reason there were so many rulers at this time was because of a magician called Gob.
You've never seen
I don't
Arrested
know what that's
Development,
a
have
reference
you?
You know what?
Okay.
I watched the first few episodes of the first season, but
Okay.
that was probably
Okay. Sorry, I'm
later.
trying not to interrupt. Okay. My bad.
Okay. It's all good. But now where was I? See, this is the problem is I lose my train of thought. Oh yeah. So Jeremiah was around for a while, and active during this pivotal time when the Judean kingdom came to an end. It was a politically tumultuous time after the death of King Josiah. Josiah was killed, seemingly tragically, in a confrontation with the pharaoh from Egypt, Necho. And as you know, when Necho installed a ruler of his own choosing on the throne, which happened to be Jehoiakim, things started to become quite unsettled in the city of Jerusalem. The Babylonians were starting to impose themselves on the region. They had overtaken the Assyrian Empire. By this time, they were making overtures towards Egypt, and eventually marched their way down and fought the Egyptians. They took control of the region. Judah became a Babylonian vassal, and resisted against that. So this first part of the book of Jeremiah, a lot of scholars continue to maintain, potentially dates back to the prophet himself. There's material here within the book of Jeremiah that perhaps Jeremiah himself even spoke, if not had actually written down. Scholars will often point to a text they identify as the scroll of 605 BCE, which is a collection, we're told, in Jeremiah chapter 25, right towards the end there of chapter 25, about this scroll on which Jeremiah wrote, or had written, all of his prophecies. These were oracles that he started delivering from as early as 627 BCE. So over this period of nearly 20 years, if the chronology within the text is to be believed. And the the thought is that that a lot of this material from chapters 1 to 20 is what comprises the scroll of 605, that these potentially are oracles that can be traced back to Jeremiah himself. In addition, we have an appendix that was added to the scroll of 605 in chapters 21 to 23, and then a collection of some of the texts within this grouping known as the Confessions. These are some pretty deeply introspective, uh, quite moving poems that appear in chapters 11, 15, 17, and 18. Again, these are things that scholars have pointed to and wondered about, if these aren't just the movements, the thoughts, the internal thoughts of the prophet himself. And I agree with Simone. The Confessions are pretty great. Actually, there's some of my favorite parts of the book of Jeremiah. So we're probably not going to talk too much about them today, though. So that's kind of what's at the core of the book of Jeremiah, but there's a lot of later redactional activity that took place within the composition of this book. The second layer, whoops, that's the wrong button, but it's good to see you, Lawrence. I actually didn't mean to press. Did I do that, or did you do that? I can't tell. So I'm doing my presentation on my iPad today. So I might press the wrong button accidentally here and there. All right. So the Jeremiah B layer is comprised of a lot of biography that appears in chapters 26 to 28. Included in this as well is a really interesting text. In chapter 29, there is a letter that Jeremiah supposedly wrote to the first group of exiles who were living in Babylon. Nebuchadnezzar came and besieged the city of Jerusalem after Jehoiakim unwisely decided to rebel against the Babylonians. He died at some point during the siege when the Babylonian army came and surrounded the city. He died at some point during the siege. His teenage son, Jehoiachin, got it right that time, was hastily installed on the throne, and the city surrendered, and he was left this poor. I often feel bad for poor young Jehoiachin, who was basically thrust out there, out the city gate, in front of Nebuchadnezzar, arguably the most powerful man in the world at this point in time, to deliver the surrender and the terms of the entire city of Jerusalem. He, his mother, his family, the royal quarter, essentially, probably a huge chunk of the priesthood, any men of influence within the army, were all exiled to Babylon in 597 BCE. Over the course of the next 2 years, a group of men living within the city in exile in Babylon started to tell people, get ready because we're going home. We're not going to stay here. In the space of 2 years, this is all going to be over, and God's going to rescue us. So Jeremiah had to write this letter to the exiled community in Babylon, basically to tell them, listen, settle down, plant vineyards, give your sons in marriage, give your daughters in marriage, take women in return for your sons to marry. You're going to be there for a while. So this was probably written sometime around or shortly after 595 BCE. And it's a very interesting text, and we'll talk a little bit about it as we go through the presentation today. This probably belongs to this second layer of things that were collected likely after Jeremiah had passed away and put into this book. And then there's this other very important section within the book of Jeremiah it's usually called the oracles against the nations, as it identifies itself in the text just simply against the nations. Appears in chapters 46 to 51 of the Masoretic text. This is a series of pronouncements of judgment and doom on the nations surrounding the kingdom of Judah. There's pronouncements against Egypt and Edom and Moab, and a couple of large oracles leveled against Babylon. So yeah, these potentially are part of things that Jeremiah actually said or delivered, but this is also part of a widely circulated prophetic trope within the Hebrew prophets. There's oracles against nations in Isaiah. There's oracles against nations in Hosea. It's a feature of Hebrew prophecy. So who can say whether this is stuff that Jeremiah actually said and did? But this probably made its way into the book in this second redactional layer. And then finally, we have the Jeremiah C material. At some point during the exile, could be not during the exile, sometime after the exile, could be well into the Hellenistic period, or maybe even towards the beginning of the Hasmonean kingdom. Somebody who was very, very fond of the book of Deuteronomy, of the Deuteronomistic history, went to work and heavily redacted the book of Jeremiah, inserted and made changes to a bunch of the material to more closely ally with the theology of the Deuteronomist. Now, I would say this was an honest effort, because I think Jeremiah distinguishes himself within the book as a proponent of what we have come to identify as Deuteronomistic theology. Jeremiah, I believe the historical Jeremiah was a fan of the religious reforms and the policies of King Josiah. And he measured the work of all of Josiah's predecessors against him. So it's not like these were dramatic changes to the message of Jeremiah, but they are on the nose enough that we can look at these texts and say, this is part of this final redactional layer on the book of Jeremiah. And we've got some really intriguing things happening in the manuscripts as well as in the versions, which show some of this stuff taking place. So that's just kind of the compositional history of the book of Jeremiah from an internal perspective and in a nutshell. Before I move on to the Septuagint, do we have anything yet, or are we? I'm not paying any attention to the chat, by the way. That's so. The chronology of chapters 26 to 29 is really interesting as well. Yeah, that's true. It does. It jumps backwards and forward, kind of organized by theme rather than time. And this is really one of the problems with the book of Jeremiah generally, is that organizational principles for the book itself in its various versions are not certain. Scholars have looked at the way the material appears and have kind of gone, yeah, it's they've come up with ideas about how to understand the structure of the various books, and it just there's it's kind of wide open in terms of how scholars think about it. Mark uses Jeremiah's arrests and related interactions in his arrest and trial of Jesus. Oh, that's interesting. Maybe I have to think about that. When they were in exile, what kept them from just leaving and going back? Probably I would think probably the distance, more than anything. And these were people of influence and means as well. A lot of them probably found life in Babylon relatively accommodating. But it's a good question beyond the fact that Babylon was so far away from Judah. And you'll remember, in order to make the trip to and from, you can't just go as the crow flies across the trackless wasteland to the east.
really
You
is
have to actually go
wasteland.
north. It really is.
West,
You have to go
yeah.
north. Sorry, east. If you're traveling. Oh no, yeah, you're going west now because you're going
Mhm.
from Babylon back to. Yeah, right. So
You have to follow the Euphrates
yeah.
north and
Mhm.
then go back down closer to the coast side. So
Yeah.
there's a reason it's
Yeah.
called the Fertile Crescent, and it doesn't really look like that anymore. But yeah, you can't just, unless you just want to die, you don't really want to cut through the middle of
Yeah.
nowhere.
So it's a journey of like thousands of kilometers, I believe. I can't believe I just said kilometers. Anyways, would like to hear your thoughts on this? In Jeremiah 29, we are told not to listen to the prophets raised in Babylon, but Ezekiel was a prophet raised in Babylon. That's yeah. I also quite
Except
like
for this
this,
one.
and well, actually, I don't know. I think that Jeremiah and Ezekiel, in many respects, were on opposite sides of this conversation, and probably would have been, natural rivals if they knew of each other in real life. I suspect they would probably not have necessarily gotten along. Um, I, Jeremiah's lineage, he traces back through the Levites and to the priesthood founded by Eli at Shiloh. and Ezekiel's a
That's a
tzaddik,
northern priesthood. Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Dun dun
So
dun.
yeah. So they were I think and if you look too, this is something that I like to see in the text as well. If you think about what Jeremiah was reading and what Ezekiel was reading, it feels like Jeremiah was, if he had texts that he was drawing from, he probably had something like Deuteronomy, um, core Deuteronomy material, whereas Ezekiel's favorite book was the Holiness Code. So in the book of Leviticus. Yeah, who knows, right? Who knows if Ezekiel was part of this group that Jeremiah was saying, don't listen to these people. So yeah. In this Deuteronomic layer though, we also have what's called the Book of Confessions in chapters 30 to 33. Is a series of late oracles of hope for the post-exilic community and for the future of the nation of Israel. We have the epilogue material in chapters 39 to 41, as well as chapter 52, which itself is just lifted straight out of the Deuteronomistic history. It reproduces word for word chapter 24 verses 18 to chapter 25 verse 21. It skips verses 22 through 26, and then again word for word verses 27 to 30, word for word. So interesting. I think there's some interesting textual differences between the two versions of the same story in Second Kings and in the book of Jeremiah, but that's essentially how the book was composed and structured. Now, we know of the book of Jeremiah in the Masoretic text, which is preserved in Hebrew by the Masoretes, who started doing their work in and around 600 CE. Sorry. And we know of forms of the Masoretic text, a proto-Masoretic text, if you will, from the Dead Sea Scrolls, as well as from a handful of other small fragments of manuscripts that predate the medieval period. And so that's we have the Masoretic text version, which is comprised of 52 chapters. This is the version that appears in all of our English translations, but the book was also translated into Greek and then circulated in the Septuagint by the Christian church. The book of Jeremiah there is quite a bit shorter. As I mentioned, it's 13% shorter, and the arrangement of material is dramatically different. For a long time, scholars, people who were familiar with the text, observers of the text, maintained that the Septuagint version of Jeremiah was just hopelessly corrupt, that it was just a terrible rendition, translation of the Masoretic version. I'm even going to tell a lot of the same stories that I told during my stream yesterday. So, and I told this story yesterday when I was still a graduate student, or I'd either just started my PhD, or it was shortly before I had started my PhD. I met at my local church a visiting pastor, and when I was talking to him after the service and told him what I was doing in school, he asked me this question. He said, "Can you tell me how it is that the Septuagint translator got the book of Jeremiah so wrong?" This is how this was the conventional thinking about this, that the Greek translation,
quite the right question to be asking, but it does tell you kind of where his philosophy is coming from.
Exactly, exactly. So, but
Yeah.
this was common to think this quite a while ago. A lot of that changed. I mean, scholars started to look pretty closely at the Greek translation and to see already that no, I mean this is legitimately translated from a proper Hebrew text that looks like it probably was quite different from the Hebrew text that's preserved in the Masoretic text. So, and then when the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered, we found copies of the book of Jeremiah that basically affirm this point. We're in a situation now where most scholars, I think, are in wide agreement that the Septuagint version of Jeremiah, as it's represented in the Greek translation, is an earlier version of the book that was massively expanded and rearranged and reorganized into a new version that now appears in the Masoretic text. So I'll just give you, first of all, an outline of what this looks like, these differences between these two versions, and then I'll show some examples of how this works out in a few places of the text. So first of all, the book of Jeremiah, chapters 1 through chapter 25, verse 14, follow the same arrangement in both the Septuagint and the Masoretic versions. And this lends some credence to the idea that these first 25 chapters of the book of Jeremiah really properly form the core of the book, the earliest stage of the composition of the book of Jeremiah. There are quite a number of differences between the Septuagint version and the Masoretic version within these first 25 chapters, but not in the arrangement. They followed the same basic structure at that point. So these look predominantly the same, and both books end with chapter 52. Although, as you can see there, there's a bunch of stuff that seems to have been added by Masoretic Jeremiah that's missing in the likely earlier version in Septuagint Jeremiah. You don't have verses 2 to 3 or verse 15 or verses 28 through 30. So it's quite a bit different in chapter 52, but largely the picture looks similar. Now I'm following the Masoretic order here because most of your English Bibles will also follow the Masoretic order. So from chapters 25 through chapter 51, here is where we see some of the substantial differences. The numbering is all different in the Septuagint. We're not going to talk about that. I will just show you what this looks like using the Masoretic arrangement, because that's what most people are familiar with, even though I'm of the belief, and most scholars are of the belief, that the Septuagint version of the book of Jeremiah is the earliest version of the book of Jeremiah that we have. So here I've color coded things in yellow text, and then I've got chapters 46 through 51 here. These are the oracles against the nations. I've color coded in this lovely aquamarine color, and you can see the order here begins with Egypt, and it sort of forms like a circuit in the Masoretic version. It follows the geography. You've got Egypt, then Philistia, then Moab, and then in chapter 49 you've got a bunch of these smaller oracles to these surrounding nations: Ammon, Edom, Damascus, Kedar, Chatzor, and Elam. And then it finishes up with two very long oracles leveled against the city of Babylon. So in the Septuagint, following chapter 25, following the core material of the first part of Jeremiah, the Septuagint version actually then has all of the oracles against the nations. So instead of at the end, they actually appear at the beginning of the second half. And as you can see here, the order of the oracles is also pretty dramatically different, starting with Elam, then Egypt, then Philistia, then the two long oracles against Babylon, then Ammon, Kedar, Chatzor, Damascus in chapter 49, and then finishing up with Moab. And then it follows the same basic order of the rest of the yellow text material. But here again, you can see a number of places where there is things missing in the Septuagint version that are present in the Masoretic version. So, for example, in chapter 30, chapter 30 is missing verses 10 and 11, verse 15, and verse 22. Chapter 31 is missing verse 35. Or sorry, it's got everything rearranged. So it goes verses 1 to 34, then 36, then 37, then verse 35, then 38 to 40. So some things are arranged differently. There's a lot of material that's missing in chapter 39. There's almost a full 10 verses missing in chapter 29, which we'll talk a little bit about in the next section. You can see there's a chunk of text missing from verses 16 through 20. So this is, all contributing to the shorter version in the Septuagint. What scholars largely think is the older version of the book of Jeremiah. So what does this look like? I've pulled some examples here. I've got 3 examples. And the first one is in Jeremiah chapter 10, verses 1 to 11. And I've done my own translations of these texts just to illustrate what this looks like. And you'll remember this is from the first part, sort of the core part of the book of Jeremiah. Some scholars maintain that the Masoretic version of Jeremiah is actually the older one, and the Septuagint version of this part is actually corrupted. That's not my thinking on this. I think actually that it more likely followed the Septuagint version, although there's some mistakes in the Septuagint version. And I think you'll see what I'm talking about here as we as I illustrate this on the screen, what this looks like. So here is how verses 1 to 5a appears in the Septuagint. Hear the word of the Lord, and that word, the Lord there is translated from the Greek Kyrios, and the Greek word Kyrios is translating the Tetragrammaton, the divine name of God Yahweh. Hear the word of the Lord that he spoke against you, house of Israel. So says the Lord, do not learn according to the ways of the nations, and do not be afraid of the signs of the sky, because they are afraid of them to their faces, because the laws of the nations are empty. There is a tree from the forest cut down, a work of a craftsman, a molten image. Silver and gold is there. They have been beautified. They fasten them with hammers and nails, and they shall not be moved. It is engraved silver. They do not walk. And yeah, you're right. I picked this text because it's Christmas time, and I know a lot of Christians like to say that this is about Christmas trees. So
It is definitely not.
it absolutely is
Definitely.
not. So yeah.
I used to think that, like, when I was, I guess, around college age, this became something that I had fallen into, and I was like, yeah, you shouldn't be making Christmas trees. Like, look at Jeremiah 10. And it was only in the last, I guess maybe 10 years or so that I got to be aware of scholarship and learned about this, and was like, oh, these are talking about like divine images and like carved idols and things. It's not talking about a Christmas tree, because I didn't have Christmas trees. Oh,
I tried to convey that in my translation. Some of the English translations don't do a great job of that. So
yeah.
So it's definitely not Christmas trees. But let's take a look at how the Masoretic version of this text looks through the first 5 verses. Hear the word that Yahweh speaks to you, house of Israel. I'm going to put this here. I think. Sorry, I'm just gonna move a couple of things around. Okay,
The-
there we go.
Lawrence is saying when you were college age, you're like 25 tops. Yeah, I'm definitely not 25, but that's very nice.
Our audience is so nice.
You're very kind.
So yeah. I yes, no, but Vish is much closer to 25 than I am. Much
Much?
closer. Much.
I'm not much closer. I just am
No,
closer.
you're much closer. All right. Hear the word of Yahweh. Hear the word that Yahweh speaks against you, house of Israel. So says Yahweh. Do not learn according to the ways of the nations, and do not be terrified of the signs of the sky, because the nations are terrified of them. Since the laws of the people are up breath, there is a tree from the forest. He has cut it down, a work of a craftsman with a tool. In silver and gold he has beautified it. With nails and hammers they secure them, and it does not stagger. It is engraved silver. They do not walk. You can see that these are very close. The Septuagint translation of the Hebrew text is pretty on point. There's not significant differences in these first 5 verses, but then things start to go a little bit awry. After the first part of verse 5, we have verse 9 appearing in the Septuagint version, then the second part of verse 5, and this part of the text concludes with verse 11, and verses 7, 8, and 10 are missing altogether from the Septuagint version. So this is how it reads. Beaten silver will come from Tharsis, gold from Molphas, and a hand of goldsmiths. Works of craftsmen all. They will clothe them in blue and purple. Raised they will be carried, because they will not walk. Do not be afraid of them, because they shall surely do nothing bad, and there is no good in them. Thus you shall say to them, gods who did not make the sky and the earth, let perish from the earth and from beneath the sky. So now, as I pointed out, the order in the Masoretic text is going to be quite different in this second part, and there's going to be a bunch of additional text that looks like this. So here you have this is what verse 9 looks like in this is the second part of verse 5. That's right. This is the second part of verse 5. And then the last part there in verse 11, just to show you what they look like. And here's how the text appears compared to the Septuagint. They are like a scarecrow in a cucumber field. That's part of that part is new. They do not speak, they must be carried, for they cannot walk. Do not be afraid of them, since they cause nothing bad, neither is there anything good about them. Now, listen to this and tell me if you can even hear it. Can you hear the shift in the text here as I read it? There is none like you, Yahweh. You are great. Your name is great in power. Who is afraid of you, King of the nations? It is your right, because in all the wisdom of the nations, in all their kingdoms, there is no one like you. They are stupid and dumb, every one of them. Their discipline is vacuous. It is a piece of wood. Hammered silver is brought from Tarshish, gold from Uhaz. That's the repeated part from verse 9 that appears in the Septuagint version that you can see at the top there. Work of an engraver and hand of a smith. Their clothes are purple and blue, the work of skilled artisans, all of them. But Yahweh is the true God who lives. He is the God who lives and the King of deep time. By his fury, the earth shakes, but the nations cannot endure his indignation. Can you hear it there? Can you hear the difference in the tone and the subject and the voice of the speaker in this chunk of the oracle? It's I think it's obvious. So, and then Here's verse 11. Because of this, you shall say to them, the gods who did not make the sky and the earth, let perish from the earth and from under these skies. What's really interesting here, and I don't know, I haven't done enough work on this. I'd like to in the future. But the italicized portion of this text here is I've italicized this because in the Hebrew text you don't see this in the Greek translation, but in the Masoretic text, the italicized portion is actually written in Aramaic. So this is not Hebrew.
Ooh.
This statement of what you're to say to the gods is written in Aramaic, which I think is really cool. So, but that's an example of how the Masoretic text expands on the Septuagint version of the book of Jeremiah. Let's look at another one. This is from Jeremiah chapter 25. This is verses 1 to 13. So this is the conclusion of the first book of, the scroll of 605 section of Jeremiah. And there's some important differences between the Septuagint version and the Masoretic version, and I've arranged it a little bit differently. So I will read first how the Septuagint version reads, and then I will show you where the Masoretic text has made insertions and additions to the text, mostly just to provide detail, color, some extra information. But there's a couple of really important additions I do want to draw your attention to as we go through this. The word that was on Jeremiah concerning the people of Judah in the 4th year of Jehoiakim, son of Josiah, king of Judah, what he said about the people of Judah and leveled at those who lived in Jerusalem from the 13th year of Josiah, son of Ammon, king of Judah, and until this day, 23 years. So I'm going to pause there, and I'm going to show you some things that are included, that were added by the Masoretic writer here. He adds this qualifier. This was in the 1st year of Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon. What Jeremiah the prophet said about all the people of Judah and leveled at all those who lived in Jerusalem. He said that this was from the 13th year of Josiah, son of Ammon, and until this day. This is 23 years, not just the statement about the passage of time. He's added the demonstrative pronoun there. In the Septuagint, it continues, and I have spoken to you, rising early and speaking. He has sent to you all his slaves, the prophets. Persistently he sent them, but you did not hear them. You did not extend your ears to their saying, turn back, every man from his evil way and from the wickedness of your deeds. Turn back onto the ground that he has given you and to your fathers from the distant past and into the far future. Do not go after other gods to serve them or to bow down to them. But you did not listen to me, rather choosing to provoke me by the work of your hands to your own doom. So here are just some of the things that the Masoretic text has added. The word of Yahweh was to me, so it's sort of an introductory clause there. I have spoken to you rising early and speaking, but you have not heard me. And then the Masoretic text provides all these qualifications, identifying Yahweh as the subject, where the Septuagint does not. And then right at the end of this first condemnation, the Masoretic text has added this statement: do not provoke me by the work of your hands, and I will not bring evil down upon you. So don't piss me off and you'll be fine. And then he adds another one of these clarifying statements. This is an oracle of Yahweh. This is Naum Adonai, which is a very frequently recurring phrase throughout the Hebrew prophets. It's sort of a prophetic marker of when Yahweh is speaking, and the individual prophetic oracles that belong to him. So the text moves on in the Septuagint. Now then, this is what Yahweh has said. Because you would not hear my words, see, I am the one who has stretched out, and I will take all the clans from the north, and I will bring them onto this land and against its inhabitants, against all these nations round about. So I'm going to pause there. I'm going to show you what the Masoretic text has added here. First of all, it's Yahweh Tsebaot, Yahweh of armies, Yahweh of hosts. And then there's this statement when identifying the clans of the north. The Masoretic text has said again, Naom Adonai, an oracle of Yahweh, and for Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, my slave. That's new. That's new here. I will bring them onto this land and against its inhabitants, against all these nations round about, and I will make them a cherem offering. I shall designate them for horror, for hissing, ruins for all time. Then I shall extinguish from among them the voice of joy and happiness, voices of the groom and bride, milling and lamplight. The entire land shall be a wasteland, and nations will be enslaved 70 years. The Masoretic text has provided a lot of we should probably finish. Then in the fullness of 70 years, I shall inflict upon this nation an oracle of Yahweh. I shall set him up for a wasteland for all time, and I shall bring against this land all my words, which I spoke against it, everything that was written in this book. So that's the end of the oracle as it appears in the Septuagint. That's the end of verse 13. And then it picks up with a new paragraph, what Jeremiah prophesied against the nation of Elam. So you'll recall in the Septuagint, after the conclusion of this first book, it starts with the oracles against the nations. This is the first of the oracles uttered against Elam. So let's look and see how the Masoretic text makes changes here. First of all, there's all this clarifying material that is added. The sound of milling and lamplight. This entire land shall be for ruins, a wasteland. These nations will be enslaved by the king of Babylon for 70 years. Then in the fullness of 70 years, I shall afflict upon the king of Babylon and this nation. So, and then this statement, the object of the affliction, their guilt, and upon the land of Kasdim. In Hebrew, this is the word that's usually translated into English as the Chaldeans. And instead of the conclusion of the oracles then changes, because instead of shifting into instead of shifting into that new section of the oracles of the nations, which is now moved to the end of the book, a new concluding statement has been added here. This is what Jeremiah prophesied against all the nations. For they also shall be enslaved by many nations and great kings, and I will retaliate against them according to their deeds and the work of their hands. So as you can see, most of this stuff is just clarifying material. It's just adding color and detail and precision to the text that's already there. But there's some important key features here that I want to draw your attention to. Most notably in I'm not sure what verse that is, but where the king Nebuchadnezzar is explicitly identified. He's never explicitly identified in the Septuagint version of this text, but he is in the Masoretic version. The Masoretic text has made sure that everybody understands that he's talking about the king of Babylon. But this statement here, I think, is quite revealing and quite important. An oracle of Yahweh, and for Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, my slave. So this expression, my slave, occurs in one other place in the book of Jeremiah. It's also in chapter 43, verse 10. And then there's this the verbal expression, of the same root, to serve him. appears also in chapter 27, verse 6. And in these two other places, it's with reference to Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon. And importantly, those are only in the Masoretic text. Within the Septuagint version of the book of Jeremiah, Nebuchadnezzar is never identified as the slave of Yahweh, as the servant of Yahweh, which I think is really interesting. I think is really important for understanding why this second version of this book is tied directly to the appraisal of Babylon and their part in the history of God in the destruction of Jerusalem and the exile and the aftermath. There's a stronger focus within the Septuagint version of Jeremiah on the nation of Egypt. Jeremiah really, really hated Egypt a lot. And this comes out really, really sharply in the arrangement of the text in the Septuagint version. That's been muted a fair bit. And the focus within the Masoretic version of Jeremiah is much more on Babylon. Not only does it identify Nebuchadnezzar as the instrument of Yahweh's judgment on the nation of Israel explicitly, on Judah explicitly, but then it also singles out Babylon for judgment as well by moving those oracles against Babylon to the very end, before appending the epilogue to the entire thing in chapter 52. And I've got one more example here that I've actually written about in my book. Feels like it's time for oh right, there it is. Feels like it's probably time for one of these.
Kip Davis has written nope.
So, but in this one book that I have,
I would like to thank the generous souls who got me things off my wish list, and that book was included. Yeah.
it's funny.
I know that you sent me the PDF that I could read through it, which is good. That's good. I need the digital version, but also whenever I read books, I annotate them a lot. Yeah. So I love underlining and highlighting and making notes and things. So I need physical books. So
it was very cute. It was very cute though. I was moved because as soon as you got your care package, Vish texts me and she's like, "Hey, I'm in the acknowledgements." So I was like,
I know, I was surprised by that. Spell my name wrong. That's okay.
And that is true. I mean, it is published. It's just not. It's just nobody can buy the goddamn thing yet.
Well,
so annoying.
The thing is with my name is my parents were super special and just reversed like every vowel and took out stuff, and like I don't think any other person with my name spells it this way. Maybe, but
I also did not spell it this way.
Look, I don't blame people because most spell it the common way that it's spelled, and I blame my parents. They were going to name me Rachel Whitney, but apparently the lore goes that one of my dad's friends had a daughter like right before I was born, and he named her that, and my parents got pissed off, and my dad was like, "You're not my friend anymore," and so they picked the name for me. I was like, well, that came out of left field.
I like your name a lot better than Rachel Whitney. I do.
Yeah, I'm not a Rachel. Definitely not a Rachel.
You definitely are
Whitney.
not.
No.
Nope. 100% no. All right. So this third example of so the changes between the Masoretic and the Septuagint version of the book of Jeremiah I've written about in this book, and I'm just going to read what I wrote here.
Woohoo!
Where am I going to start? Yes. So most of the Hebrew Bible texts are anonymous, but I cut that part off. With the major editing taking place after the Babylonian exile, These sources were now circulated anew in constellations of ideas, themes, events, or personalities, and formed the foundation for even more later literary compositions. When some of these texts were revised, they were distributed in new versions, while the older ones were still current. This is what happened in the book of Jeremiah, where an older version was translated into Greek, into what we now call the Septuagint, while the updated version continued to be copied in Hebrew in the form of the Masoretic text. Both versions contain a letter that Jeremiah is said to have written to the first exiles, those who had been taken to Babylon after Nebuchadnezzar's first siege in 597 BCE. Jeremiah's letter was written to warn those living in Babylon about their allegiance to Yahweh and to remind them of the permanence of their new living situation. But at several points in the letter, an editor has made some significant changes. One of the reasons I like this particular text for illustrating this is because within Jeremiah chapter 29 is perhaps the most famous Old Testament verse of all time. You hear it at every Christian high school graduation on earth.
I know
You
plans I have for
see it.
you. Blah, 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 blah.
Yes. The
Yeah.
blobbity, the plans to blobbity blah verse. As
Blah,
it
blah, blah,
shall
blah,
now be, as it
Et
shall
cetera, et cetera.
now and forever be known, is part of this text. And it's, you know what, this is part of late Masoretic redaction. So here's how it looks in the original Septuagint version. The Lord send, this is translating the Tetragrammaton, Yod He Vav He. When 70 years are completed for Babylon, I will visit you, and I will fulfill my word to you by bringing your people back to this place. So I will make a plan of peace for you, and not to give you these evils. And you will pray to me, and I will hear you. So seek me out. You will find me, because you seek me with all your heart, and I will appear to you. Here's how it sounds in the Masoretic text. So says Yahweh, only when 70 years for Babylon are completed, I will pay attention to you. I will fulfill my good word to bring you back to this place, because I know the thoughts I have for you, declares Yahweh, thoughts of peace and not of harm, to give you a future and hope. When you call upon me, go and pray to me. I will listen to you. When you seek me, you will find me. If you seek me with your whole heart, declares Yahweh. And it doesn't end there. It continues. I will bring you back from your captivity. I will gather you from all nations and places where I have driven you, and I will bring you back to the place from which I caused you to be carried away captive. I'm just going to read this paragraph that I wrote following this citation. As with a number of the Hebrew Bible texts, this new version in the Masoretic text is expansive. It is no longer, it is not only longer and more precise, but the audience itself has changed with the passage of time. The older version is a fairly general promise of return to Jerusalem that was offered to those who had left as captives and were living in Babylon. However, the new text promises that returnees to Jerusalem would come from all nations and places where I have driven you. This is a message beyond the strict confines of Babylon, and now rather delivered to Jewish diaspora communities across the Hellenistic world after the 4th century BCE, in Egypt, in Persia, in Syria. A careful survey of the two texts together reveals to the observant reader, as all of you are, changes in setting and interests, which also reflect back on matters of ultimate concern. So I think that's pretty cool. Not only is the Masoretic redactor working to provide clarification to the texts in his possession, he's clearly updating them to reflect new concerns for new communities who are now circulating this literature. This is just part of the scribal process. This is part of the transmission of texts as we understand them to be scriptures. It's about addressing community need as much as it's about anything. So maybe we'll pause there for a second. I've been prattling on for almost an hour. You got some? Do we
I
have
did
some?
save a few things.
All right.
Okay, let me.
Yeah, for P. For Pihash. Yeah.
Nothing quite like doing Shabbat Hana candle blessing with a nerdy Hebrew text stream on in the background. It's already dark here on the East Coast. Yeah.
Nice. Nice.
I'm excited because, again, thanks to some very generous people, I have a beautiful
Oh my
new
God. The
Hanukkah.
menorah.
And I know, and I also have a new display for my Shabbat candles, and it is extremely Hidur Mitzvah coded. So very excited.
It's so nice.
Gorgeous. Lieutenant Met the Navigator, who is one of those generous people, for 10 says, speaking of the geography of Southwest Asia, one time I had a guy tell me the Noachian flood story must be an eyewitness account because Israel is a desert and the Jewish authors had no real conception of ships.
That is pretty funny.
Yeah, they just wrote about ships of Tarshish and, people having ships. The Phoenicians, they didn't know about anything about that.
So,
Eric Nicholson, is the expansion of Greek Esther at all similar to what is happening in Jeremiah?
Yeah, but much more expansive. Yes, I would say it's similar. I don't know that much about like this is my bread and butter here in Jeremiah, so I don't know as much about the compositional history of the book of Esther, but in the little bits that I know, it's like that, but way more so. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks for the question. Fish is 25.
Fish is 25 tops. Kips is 80 bottoms.
Thanks, kiddo.
I was thinking about this is this is about the tree in
okay.
Jeremiah 10. I was thinking about this as the biggest defeater to Christianity, being that their God was from the Canaanite pantheon. I understand how this isn't a main point in shutting down Christian apologists. Okay, so this is something I can speak to because I used to also think this. I was like, haha, they're the prophets denouncing your stupid Christmas trees, you stupid pagan thieves, blah, 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 blah. The thing is, this is one of those tactics where your real issue is with Christian hegemony, not with like what the text is saying or whatever. So Christmas trees are Christian innovation. They came about, in the Upper Rhine region or whatever. And that means you can't just like retcon that back centuries to Jeremiah. But the thing is like, you can argue against Christian hegemony. You can also argue against certain theological positions they have without appealing to ahistorical stuff. And I noticed that there was a conversation to this effect in the chat where people were saying like, hey, but looks like is just not a metric for determining the truth of something. This looks like it's talking about Christmas trees, but this artifact looks like a dinosaur. It looks like an alien or an astronaut. Like that's not how this is done. So in a way, I guess I can relate to the feeling that it sucks that you feel like you have one less tool in your bag. However, you're going to get way more tools to counter like really bad apologetics if you just learn history and scholarship and archaeology. So like I feel that very much game time why. I know how that feels. I've been in that place before, but a lot of this comes from the 19th century, which I just call this the century of bad scholarship because it just was so garbage in so many ways.
It was like the angsty teenage years of scholarship. It was scholarship, critical scholarship was born in like the 17th, 18th century,
Bible
and then the 19th century was like if we could look at the last 400 years as analogously like a terminal education, those first 200 years or so, that was like your undergraduate training, and you're just kind of getting your feet wet and you're figuring this out. You're learning just the very basics of,
Mhm.
of what academics looks like, and how to do just very basic research. The 1900s was like every first year graduate student who was certain that they knew everything and got all angsty and pissy about it, and
Mm.
we're, and now, we've got, you move into the 20th century, which is like PhD stuff, where everybody then went,
Yeah.
oh fuck, it turns out we don't know as much as we thought we did, and we
Yeah,
have to
and, like,
start kind of
I understand
re-questioning
where a lot
everything.
of that came from because in the 1800s, you're just uncovering a lot of things archaeologically and
Mhm.
cataloging and writing about them. So that's a very like baby field. And
Oh
people were
yeah.
coming just out of like the Enlightenment. So you're still trying to divorce people's theology from their actual scholarship. So I
Yeah.
get that. It's just frustrating because some of the ideas that came out of that time period, people are
Oh,
still
it's
holding on to, and
terrible.
they've been extremely
Like,
debunked. Like,
just
I'm looking at what's the anti-Catholic Methodist pastor? He wrote that stupid pamphlet about Babylon. Oh, The Two Babylons by Alexander Hislop. So much of the stuff comes from him, and it's like 200 years out of date, and it was all made up because all he wanted to do is shit on Catholicism, and he just made
yeah.
stuff up. Like they stole this from the Egyptians, they stole this from the Persians and the Babylonians, they stole this from the Greeks, and and it's just horseshit, and it sucks because it doesn't like address Christian theological claims. It is completely ignorant and sometimes contradictory to actual history, and it's just a bunch of polemics that are easily debunked. And
Mhm.
that guy, he sucks. He did so much damage anyway. So, yeah. Regarding the Aramaic
That is
words,
very cool.
the chiastic structure, that's very cool. One of
I
the
didn't even
few,
look. I have
I
to go
like
back and
that.
look. Wow.
It's rare
So,
for me to find like a legit chiasm
yeah.
in the text. So,
Yeah.
Lieutenant Matt the Navigator for 5. Speaking of
Uh
ahistorical bullshit, Bronze Age goat, Bronze Age goat herders, please, y'all, I'm begging you. Goat herders weren't literate scribes, and this was in the Iron Age. Please, please, I'm begging you. If you're gonna
Yeah.
do cute, edgy atheist dunks, at least get the dunk right. So,
Indeed.
anyway,
All right.
that is most of it. Yeah, I think so. I think that's it.
Well, let's get into the fun stuff, and let's start talking about the
That wasn't
manuscripts.
already the fun stuff?
Oh, no. No, no, it gets much more fun.
Oh,
So,
okay.
um, among the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered 6 copies of the book of Jeremiah. That is not to that does not include the apocryphon of Jeremiah manuscripts from Cave 4, which I also tend to think likely belong to this conversation, because while these manuscripts are not the book of Jeremiah proper, I think there's an effort in them to respond to versions of Jeremiah that are in circulation at the time. And the response there is basically, let's just rewrite the whole fucking thing in a way that hasn't been done before. Let's get into the fun stuff. Puts up a paragraph of DSS chapter verse lists.
I know what
Fun.
your answer is going to
Very
be, but I have
fun.
to ask it anyway.
Yeah.
When you're looking at these parts of the Dead Sea Scrolls,
Mhm.
are they much more substantial than the Jubilees fragments that you find?
Some of them are.
Because that
I
stuff,
mean, I'll
good
show you some pictures.
God.
Yeah, yeah. No, there's
Ah!
I've actually, so the way I've got this divided, we have 6 manuscripts containing text from the book of Jeremiah. I've got them divided into 2 parts. On this first slide are what I call the major witnesses, just because we have quite a bit of material for all of them. So as you can see here, 4Q Jeremiah A, and I've got these listed also diachronically from oldest to youngest. So the oldest of the manuscripts of Jeremiah is 4Q Jeremiah A. I am obsessed with this manuscript, as Simone can attest. I was actually in my, not my last postdoc, but when I was working in my postdoc at the University of Achter, one of the projects I was working on was actually a new edition of this particular manuscript. And I got quite a ways into it. Like, I've got a complete transcription. I've got a complete description of the physical features. I've got a complete discussion of variants and features within the manuscript. I've got half of like a variance list. It's a pretty substantial document already, and something that I intend to get back to at some point. It got shelved, but this is a manuscript that I am obsessed with. It is not only the oldest copy of the book of Jeremiah, it is one of the oldest of all the Dead Sea Scrolls. It is one of the oldest biblical manuscripts in existence. You can see there it's marked paleographically as archaic in script. Dates to pretty comfortably the turn of the era, the second beginning of the second century, 200 BCE, maybe even dates to the late 3rd century. Could be as late as 170-ish, maybe 160-ish. I think it definitely predates the Hasmonean Kingdom, the Hasmonean Revolt. So it's really fucking old, which is awesome. And as you can see from the list of contents here, that there's quite a bit of material preserved between chapters 7 and 22. So, and I we'll talk a fair bit about one of a few of the fragments of this particular manuscript towards the end. So that's 4Q Jeremiah A. Next is 4Q Jeremiah C, 4Q 72, which is early Herodian, dates from, roughly the late 1st century BCE. And as you can see there, it preserves a lot of material from Jeremiah chapter 4 through Jeremiah chapter 33. So, and the reason I've got it all marked out the way I do on the screen is because these represent places where there is missing text, more or less, because the manuscripts are fragmentary. So, like I'll point out with like with 4Q Jeremiah A, you've got a run there from chapter 7 through chapter 9, mostly. You've got most of a bunch of material from there. You've got material from chapter 10, then 11, then 12, then 13, 14, 15. Nothing left from chapter 16. You've got some from chapter 17, 18, 19, and 20, and then nothing from chapter 21, and then a bunch of material from chapter 22. So, sorry, I missed that one.
Oh,
What was it?
I keep hearing fork you Jeremiah versus 4Q. Yeah.
4Q.
Also,
awesome.
Never bring it up. Okay, in terms of the Christmas tree thing, that's just ahistorical. It's not true. So that don't use it unless you just want someone to body you and prove you wrong, because it's not historical. But in terms of the Bronze Age goat herders thing, don't use it as a pithy response to specific Christian apologetics. Yeah, like the goal of that response is, haha, ignorant, stupid, non-scientific, like primitive people that were tribal.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, the narratives might be set in the Bronze Age, but all of the texts that we have and all of like the development of this culture happened in the Iron Age. And again, goat herders weren't the people writing these texts. It was trained scribes. It was like elite class of people that were highly educated. It wasn't just folks out in the field. So it's just one of those things where it's like, don't use it, because it's also like not historical. But if you want to say, haha, stupid primitive people, then just say that. Like, I don't think that's a great response, but at least just say what you mean, because there's so many better arguments. But also
Agreed.
your goddess from the Canaanite pantheon. I mean, to a degree, yes, because the tribes emerged out
No,
of Canaanite
but
tribes. However,
that's also not even true, right? Because
yeah,
from all that we see, the God Yahweh looks like an import. He was not part
from the
of
south.
broader Canaanite pantheon. He was a god that was adopted from the south, like from outside of Canaan
Mount
into
Seir,
Canaan,
I
and we
think.
have no
Yeah.
evidence that anybody but those, who identified themselves as Israelites worshiped Yahweh. No evidence that anybody,
Yeah.
throughout the rest of the Canaanite nations had any kind of allegiance to
Yeah.
Yahweh.
It
So
seems like whatever tribes and like pantheon worship was going on the ground, the people that served this god from the south, who had a lot of storm imagery associated with it,
yeah,
they came into the land and kind of over time became the dominant cultural hegemon. So once that happens, you start kind of absorbing titles and traits from the gods around you, and then over time that gets mishmashed and starts consolidating and consolidating, and then by the end of the exile, it's one god only. There's no others. They're fake. It's like, again, that's kind of political religious development, but El was the chief
yes, he
god of
was
the
the
Canaanite
king of the
region.
gods in the Canaanite pantheon, and
Yeah.
also, worshipped by the Israelites. So,
El
you're welcome.
Elyon.
Game time why.
Yeah.
All right. So,
El the Most.
yeah. So, so that's Forky Jeremiah C, which is probably, but just in terms of material preservation, the most of what we've got from Jeremiah comes from this one manuscript, and then the other big one is 4Q or 2Q Jeremiah. So this is a copy that was found in Cave 2. It's late Herodian, so first half of the 1st century CE. So copied sometime before the destruction of the Jerusalem temple, Herod's temple, in 70. And the contents here you can see is from Jeremiah 42, 43, 44, 46, 48. And yeah, I actually don't know very much about this particular manuscript. I'm trying to do deep work on all of them, but because 4Q Jeremiah A and 4Q Jeremiah C are the biggest, I've spent most of my time there. But we have some smaller ones. Oh, first of all, yes, let's look at this. These last two, 4Q Jeremiah C from the early Herodian period, and then 2Q Jeremiah from the late Herodian period, have been classified, and scholars are in pretty wide agreement about this, as pretty close to the Masoretic text version of the book of Jeremiah. Emmanuel Tove wrote the edition for 4Q Jeremiah A, and he also classified 4Q Jeremiah A as a Masoretic text. I disagree, and I will talk a little bit about the reasons for that disagreement, but I would say that 4Q Jeremiah A has an uncertain textual alignment, and in many places it's just been either misunderstood or poorly reconstructed. So the next part of the presentation we'll talk about that. So we have these other smaller manuscripts. 4Q71, originally this designation was given to 3 fragments, but when it came time to work on the publication of the editions, scholars noticed that the handwriting on all 3 fragments is different, and so they probably belong to 3 separate manuscripts, but it's just each just little individual fragments, right? So the first of these is 4Q Jeremiah B, which is still 4Q71. It's Hasmonean. That's about the best we can do. There's probably a 100-year range in which I would date the hand. There's maybe 20 or 25 individual letters on the fragment, so it's not the easiest to date. And it contains this oracle that we read earlier, Jeremiah chapter 9, verses 22 to 10, 5a, 9, 5b, and 11 to 13. So this particular fragment contains the oracle from Jeremiah 10 in the Septuagint arrangement of that oracle. So it has been classified as a text that looks like it was, a Septuagint version of Jeremiah, which is pretty cool.
I'm absolutely stunned that that is so late.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
oh my god. I mean, it's
Yeah.
probably more on my mind because, it's Hanukkah. I'm refreshing
Yeah.
about like Maccabees and the boring ass
Oh, yeah.
sociopolitics and the vast majority of that. But I keep thinking like, oh dang, that has me like that is very, very, very late.
Oh, yeah.
That's crazy.
This is all very actively being
Wow.
worked over, this stuff.
Yeah.
Forky Jeremiah
That
D.
tells me that people had some serious things to say about
they
the
did.
text. Like they weren't just like, oh yeah, this is it. All right, great, let's just copy it. Like they're like, no, I have things to say about this. Somebody write this down.
You gotta write it down.
Mhm.
So Forky Jeremiah D is a single fragment that has also been dated to the early Hasmonean period. I think it's probably comfortably late second century BCE. And it contains Jeremiah chapter 43, verses 10 to 12. Sorry, 2 to 10. I can read. And this fragment also aligns with the Septuagint. We'll talk about it more specifically here in a minute, and I'll show you exactly what's happening with this fragment, which I think is really cool. And then finally, we have Forky Jeremiah E, which is a single fragment with a few words on it from Jeremiah chapter 50, verses 4 to 6, dates to the second half of the second century BCE. And on the basis of what we have, it looks like it aligns most closely with the Masoretic text. But that doesn't mean a lot, because it's not like there's a lot there from which we can that we can actually work with. So let's look at, well, first we're going to look at this really interesting manuscript. Forky Jeremiah C is this very large manuscript, remember, that I mentioned. It contains text from Jeremiah chapter 4 through Jeremiah chapter 33. We're confident, I'm supremely confident that, it was a running text of the book of Jeremiah, starting in chapter 1 and going all the way through to chapter 33. These are a couple of fragments from it. These are some of the better looking ones. It's really interesting. You notice one of the things that you see is that there is this big gash in the leather. I can use my cursor here just to show you.
Yeah.
See
Let me see
this?
if I can
You got a
spotlight.
gash in the
Yeah.
leather here, and it was stitched up, right? So it got torn, and
Wow.
somebody fixed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool, eh? I think that's pretty cool.
Also,
Um,
I'm looking at this and I'm so used to looking at the
No,
BS that
I know
are
it makes you want to
jubilees,
cry, doesn't
and
it?
I'm looking at this going, look at all this text, this consecutive
Yeah.
text.
Yes, and when you have text like that, you can do things like this, right? Like you can
Yeah.
sit
Heck yes.
down and you can work through it and build a proper reconstruction of what this text actually looked like. You'll notice too, a couple other things I'll point out here. This is the bottom margin of this text.
Yeah.
It's big. Like this
it
is a
is.
sizable margin. I believe it's 3 centimeters. It's a large
Jeez.
manuscript. It contains, all this text from chapter 1 through chapter 33. But the other thing you'll notice is that we also have a top margin here. It is unusual among the Dead Sea Scrolls to have manuscripts that preserve top and bottom margins on the same fragment as
That's weird.
what happens here. So this provides us a lot of useful information about the manuscript. We can delimit the size of it, like the height of it, to 18 or 19 lines consistently from the beginning through to the end of the material that we have. There's a lot of space between those lines. Like the lines are spaced out quite a bit. If you look at some of the other manuscripts
Yeah.
from the Dead Sea
Or it's
Scrolls,
like,
yeah, it's compressed
yeah.
a fair bit more. Like these are line spaces of, I believe it's consistently over a centimeter. Most of the time you're dealing with line spaces of like half a centimeter to 7 or 8 millimeters quite often. So this is like there's a lot of space here.
It's
This
so
was not
it's spaced out a lot for the letters to be so tiny.
that too, right? Yeah, like they've really, this is not a very economical usage of the available
Yeah,
space.
seriously.
And I want you to think about that, right? Here's what Tove said in the edition. The total reconstructed length of the text up to chapter 33, verse 20. So this is the reconstruction of the text that we have from this manuscript on the basis of an average width of 11.5 centimeters per column. So that's 9.6 centimeters on average for each column block. So that's about how wide each column is on average. They all differ a little bit in size, plus an average of 1.6 centimeters between each column.
I'm
Yep.
pulling up my tape measure.
Nice.
Tell them a cosplayer.
So
Keep like
based
1,000
on
tape
those
measures.
figures for this manuscript, the calculation is that it would contain 88 to 95 columns of 18 lines between 9.85 to 10.6 meters in length. Now, for y'all Americans out there, that is about 32 to 35 feet. It's big.
Jeez. Big old
1Q
boy.
Isaiah A is 7.34 meters. The Temple Scroll is the largest of all the Dead Sea Scrolls. It's 8.14 meters. This manuscript, up to chapter 33, would have measured up to 35 feet. It's big. But
Dang.
then it says, if the remaining chapters of Jeremiah are added to this calculation, that'd be another 6.4527 meters. The reconstructed length of the whole scroll would be 16.3 to 17.6 meters.
What is that
That's-
in equals?
That's 53 to 58 feet in length.
Good God.
And
What?
far
Oh my God.
far outstrips anything we have from the region. There are some papyrus
Dang.
copies of the Book of the Dead from Egypt that measure like up to 100 feet, but this is within Jude. This is parchment, right?
Yeah, that's
Parchment.
yeah. This is animal skin. This is a lot more
Uh,
expensive.
So that is now. Looking at the dimensions of this manuscript, looking at how it's laid out, I think the question we have to ask is, how certain should we be that this is a complete copy of everything from Jeremiah chapter 1 through Jeremiah chapter 52? I mean,
Somebody in the chat was asking if this is. Oh, here we go. Videm was saying maybe it was like an illuminated text, like medieval books.
in terms of, I mean, illuminations are like decorations,
Like,
and
yeah,
things
but also
on-
I suspect, and Videm, you can correct me. meaning that it's not just for common everyday use.
Oh, yeah.
That it's
No,
like
no,
a
yeah,
special
it's
edition, like collector's
yeah.
edition
So,
or
no,
something.
that's probably true, and that's the way those of us who do work in scribal practices and who are working on the material will tend to look at some features, like the fact that this has these massive margins on, this massive margin on the bottom is an indicator that this was, this was like a luxury item, a deluxe
Mhm.
edition. Yes.
Yeah,
Not a
ultra edition.
utilitarian one. Exactly, exactly.
I
So,
love illuminated manuscripts, by the way, they're freaking
yeah,
gorgeous.
they really are. They're pretty incredible. So, but it's interesting. It's an interesting question, with regards to this manuscript. I don't have the answer, but I'm
Mm.
dubious about the total length of this scroll. It feels like that's probably too big. Um,
Hmm.
and I mean, like I said, based on everything that we have from the Judean desert, this would already be the largest of any of the manuscripts, and that's just the first half of the book of Jeremiah. So up to chapter 33. So,
Mm.
but I think it raises some intriguing questions with regards to its contents and uh composition. Yes, that is the problem. That is the problem. Uh
Yeah.
when you have to roll these things up and you have to be able to, you know, navigate them. It's very
Yeah.
hard to do that when they get really big. There is a reason why the Torah scrolls were sort
They're
of a
on
later
giant ass heavy wooden
innovation.
rollers.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and the sheets are very tall.
The sheets are
Usually,
massive. Yeah.
how much would that scroll weigh? Yeah, it would be a beast. So
I'm also laughing like me, roll up that fatty talking about a scroll.
yeah, nice. All right.
There's an account that's called Token Jew, but it's
Mm,
like token,
yeah.
and they have all sorts of kitschy accoutrement for that purpose, and it's
Brilliant.
quite entertaining. So I think they'd appreciate that joke.
Oh, they need a roll a fat one
They would roll a
now,
big well, they
don't
have
they?
rolling
They need to
papers
roll a
that
big
they
fat one.
sell all year round, but especially during Passover, where the rolling papers themselves are printed to look like a matzah cracker. It's pretty funny.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Uh,
why not?
all right. So, I wanna look at this fragment. This is 4Q Jeremiah D. Remember, this is the one that I said aligns with the Septuagint. Contains text from Jeremiah chapter 43, verses 2 to 10, which would be chapter 50 in the Septuagint. So this would be right at the end of the Septuagint version of the book of Jeremiah. There's something really interesting about this particular fragment. Yeah, I'm going to use my cursor here. You notice these like protrusions at the top of the manuscript, of the fragment, that are kind of in a row. Do you see those? So
Mm.
I've talked about um scroll construction
Some
before.
good.
I don't have paper handy, unfortunately, but they're rolled up, they get deposited in a cave, and over time they deteriorate and they decompose, and the layers get pushed together, and the deterioration occurs with these layers intact. When we see stuff like this here on the top, is what I would call a repeating pattern of damage, which indicates that this is part of the roll. These are all on top of each other in layers. These little columns here. Now, if you see how closely they are situated next to each other, the other thing that this tells me is that this is like the inside, like the very end, in the inside of the scroll. So scrolls were rolled from the end to the beginning, so that the beginning was on the outside, so that when you unroll it to read, you're starting at the beginning, right? And because of that, we know that this fragment comes from the end of the scroll, and this fragment preserves text from Jeremiah chapter 43 in Hebrew. So, it seems like this was probably the end of it. This scroll ended the way the Septuagint ends. And there's a couple of other small differences here too. Like in this line here, you can see there's Nebuzaradan, there's Et Gedaliahu ben Achikam, and then it says Ve'et Yeremiyahu ha-Navi. In the Masoretic text, it says Et Gedaliahu ben Achikam ben Shaphan. At Yeremiyahu Hanavi. So this also preserves the text that aligns with the Septuagint, which doesn't have the son of Shaphan in there in the rehearsal of names. So it's got a couple of small variants that align with the Septuagint. It looks like it came from the end of a scroll that ended where the Septuagint ended. And I think it's fair to suggest that this particular manuscript might not have even had chapter 52 on it at all. It feels like there's not much room based on what I'm seeing here from the patterns of damage. There's not much room here for much beyond chapter 44, which is the last chapter in the Septuagint version before the epilogue. No, Shaphan was not the scribe who discovered the Torah. That is Hilkiah, was a priest. And Shaphan is there are two great scribal families mentioned in the Hebrew Bible. Those are the families of Shaphan and the family of Maaseiah, I believe. Maaseiah, I think is his name. So, and Jeremiah worked with both of them. So, yeah. But it's good question. Thanks. Shaphan went to Hilkiah in that passage.
Two people came up with the whole. Did the scrolls or the scribes have a "be kind, please rewind" policy? Pretty funny.
Yeah, some of the manuscripts look like they were rolled the wrong way.
Oh no!
And chaos ensues as a result.
And chaos ensues.
Yeah. So
one of my favorite things is at the end of our liturgical cycle, at the end of Sukkot, when you're doing like Hoshana Rabbah, Shemini Atzeret. Yeah, Simchat Torah. See, this is exactly where I'm getting. One of my favorite things is they will take a Torah scroll and completely unwind the whole thing, and like people will make this huge ass circle, and one of the rabbis will generally go through and just kind of spotlight, this is the Exodus, this is blah blah blah, blah, and kind of take you through it, and then you roll it all the way back up to the beginning and start with Genesis. It's pretty awesome because it's like feet and feet and feet and feet and feet and feet. It's just an entire circumference of the room sometimes. So it's very
That's cool.
Yeah.
All right. So we're going to finish up talking about 4Q Jeremiah A. I saved the best for last. So this is the oldest Meshullam. The king sent Shaphan, son of Azaliah, son of Meshullam, the secretary to the house.
Secretary of the house of the Lord, saying this. 2 Kings 22.
Oh, nice. Wow.
Wait, didn't you did a whole presentation on this part, right? Like where you had reconstructed going to the edges of either side of this. Oh my god, this is one of my favorite things ever.
This is all right. Well, we're gonna see it again because it's the same thing. I've written quite a bit about this manuscript. So this part comes from this volume. The Bible is Notepad, which is the proceedings of a conference that I was at in Oslo, which was lovely. So I wrote an article in this book all about what I've called the long insertion in 4Q Jeremiah A. On this fragment, you can see what we have here is 2 columns of text and a margin between them, and then somebody has written vertically in the margin in a smaller text, and horizontally in a few lines in a smaller text in a paragraph break at the end of the first column. So the text runs, as I reconstruct it, the text runs from, so there's that's basically what's happening with the long insertion here. The text runs from Jeremiah chapter 7:29, which appears as its own individual paragraph. It starts quite a ways indented from the right margin, and then it ends, and then there's this long break, this long paragraph break, and then it continues on the following line with chapter 8, verse 4. It sounds like this. So 7 verse 29 says, "Cut off your hair and throw it away. Raise a lamentation on the bare heights, for Yahweh has rejected and forsaken the generation that provoked his wrath." Chapter 8, verse 4. "Thus says Yahweh, when people fall, do they not get up again? If they go astray, do they not turn back? Why then has this people turned away in perpetual backsliding?" And it continues from there. I'd like to point out that the chapter 8, verse 4 on this manuscript begins with Ko Amar Adonai, which is a shorter text from what appears in the Masoretic text. That's actually based on the Septuagint version of this this particular oracle. I think this is following the Septuagint at this point, but what I really want to focus on is this long insertion. You have a manuscript here that went straight from the end of Jeremiah chapter 7:29, didn't skip a beat to chapter 8, verse 4, and continued. And this entire section from 7 verse 30 to 8 verse 3 was missing in the original manuscript. It's very difficult to explain something this large absent from a manuscript as the result of an accident, as the result of haplography or eye skip, where the scribe has lost his place and is trying and has to locate it again for continuing his work. It's just too much material. So I tend to think, and a growing number of scholars think, that this was a proper insertion, that this was text that was not original to this text, and we have the evidence of its insertion in this particular manuscript. So you'll notice that the scribe has started with 3 lines in the paragraph break and then continued in 4 lines down the spine, down the vertical margin. And you can see, if you look closely, that the lines are getting more and more compressed the closer he's getting to the text. He's running out of room, to the point that then he's got to turn the corner at the bottom of the manuscript. He turns the manuscript once more and finishes upside down in the bottom margin of the manuscript. So let's take a look at this text that is in the insertion. I've got a translation here in this article. Here we go. So this is what appears in the long insertion. "Indeed, the sons of Judah committed wickedness in my eyes, proclaims Yahweh. They set their abominations in the house, which is called by my name, causing it to be defiled. And they built the high places of Tophet, which are in the valley of Ben Hinnom, to burn their sons and daughters in the fire, which is something I did not command them, nor did it come to my mind." And then he continues down. Come on, you can do it. It always does this. There we go. It continues
Neat.
down with the next line. "Because of this, see, the days are coming, proclaims Yahweh, when it is no longer called Tophet and the valley of Ben Hinnom, but rather the valley of slaughter. And they will bury in Tophet because there is no room. The corpse of this people will feed the birds of the sky and the animals of the earth. But there will be no one to scare them off. I will remove from the cities of Judah and from the streets of Jerusalem the sound of joy and the sound of rejoicing, the voice of the bridegroom, the voice of the bride, because the entire land will be desolate. In that moment, proclaims Yahweh, they will bring out the bones of the kings of Judah, the bones of their chiefs, the bones of the priests, the bones of the prophets, and the bones of the residents of Jerusalem from their tombs. And they will scatter them before the sun, the moon, and the entire host of the sky, whom they love and serve, after whom they have walked, whom they have divined, and before whom they have prostrated themselves. They will not be recollected and buried. They will be shit on the face of the ground. So death will be preferred to life for all who remain, those who are left over from this wicked clan in all the places of the remnant in which I have banished them, proclaims Yahweh Tsabaoth. All of that,
That is wild.
was absent from this manuscript. And by my reckoning of the hand, the secondary hand there, we're talking about 100 years in which this manuscript was used by people without any of that text. And then somebody came along and inserted it into the margin. So this was already identified by scholars as part of that C layer of Jeremiah. This is part of that Deuteronomistic expansion of the text. We might actually have evidence in this manuscript of Jeremiah C activity in the book of Jeremiah, which I think is fucking cool. There's some
That
more
is
here
awesome.
though too. Something else that I did with this particular text, which is something that I don't think anybody had done before, is I looked at, because you can see there's a big gap. There's a lot of missing text between the I think it's the 13th line, the last line on that big fragment 9, and then the first visible line on the fragment on the bottom, fragment 7. And you can see this represents like a complete whole column. When I was working on my reconstruction of this text, I figured, this text on the margin actually sets me some limitations on how much you can actually do with this space. When Emmanuel Tov published this manuscript, he said that, and he just reconstructed the whole thing on the basis of the Masoretic text, and he arrived at 32 lines of text in this one column. And this was an outlier because there's one other column that was reconstructed to a height of 31 lines. All the other columns in this manuscript have been reconstructed to either 29 or 30 lines. I'm like, I don't know. What happens when you actually take some physical measurements on the basis of a reconstruction that we can be more certain of, the reconstruction in the margin? So from fragment 4, fragment 4, column 1, line 15 that you have there, that's the red line on the top, to fragment 7, line 4, which is at the very bottom, that is a space of 11.2 centimeters. The average spacing of the lines on this particular fragment is 8 millimeters. So what that means is we have room here for another 13 lines. And when you add
Holy
them all
crap.
up, you got 29 lines of text.
Wow.
Maybe you have 30. You sure as fuck do not have 32. So what does that mean, Vish? In this empty space here, this can't be the Masoretic text. In fact, it can't be the Septuagint either, because neither of them fits. I've worked through some solutions, but they're the kinds of things where I have to just imagine this could be the case, because there's no actual versional evidence. There's no further evidence for the way the text appeared. But I think we can be fairly certain that whatever this is, it's a 30-line column, and it does not align with anything that we knew before. And there's some more substantial differences in the space that we don't have here, which is cool. I think that's cool. So
This is amazing to me. Like, I remember the last time you did a presentation on this, and you were showing the entire reconstructed fragment, and
Mm-hmm.
it blew my mind, because sometimes, you know, you wonder, well, how do they reconstruct this stuff? And once I realized, oh, physically measure the scroll, physically take measurements of the line breaks and the
Yep.
height of the letters and stuff, and then you can kind of figure out how much you could get on the page. This stuff is just
Yep.
cool as hell.
And this is, I'll be honest with you, when I started doing this kind of stuff is really when I got hooked in to committing my life to working on the Dead Sea Scrolls, because this is just fun. This kind of stuff.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's
It's like a detective
yes,
thing, you know?
yes. So this is fragment 4, column 1. You notice there's text on the other side there that belongs to column 2. I've done a lot of work on fragment 4, column 2, which is Jeremiah chapter 9, verses offhand I'm not sure, but it goes up to the preserved text that we have goes up to about up to verse 15. So I wrote another article about this in this book here. What's this one called? This is The Dead Sea Scrolls in the Study of the Humanities, where I talked about some of the things that are happening in this particular column, which are also really cool. And I'm quickly going to go over a couple of these today. So first of all, what we do when we're reconstructing text like this is we set some limit. Oh, first of all, yeah. So there's a small textual variant. I just wanted to point this out just on this manuscript here. The scribe has inserted a little yod on vayaven. This is the cal form of the verb from being and he understands or he yeah, he understands is probably best.
Discerns,
He
I think, is usually
discerns.
how I
That's
translate
good.
that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So it's possible that the yod could be correcting this form to a hiphil, but I mean which is not altogether that meaningful because it doesn't really change. That's what I'm thinking, Jace, is that it could be a hiphil. But it's not it could also just be long orthography. It's hard to say
Yeah.
when you don't have the vowel points to point you in the right direction. So
I
I
noticed
just wanted
that
to
quite a
point
bit,
that out.
because we were talking about this in the chat, about the particular interest of Dead Sea Scrolls, like whether it's the law stuff, if it's liturgical or whatever. And one thing I noticed very quickly when you sent me the copy of the Dead Sea Scrolls Ashray is the long spellings. You don't see the final
Yeah.
cough like ever, and that threw
Almost,
me
yeah,
off at
it's
first. So
in this
I love
manuscript.
this stuff.
But yeah. Also look at that final noon, eh? That's
Right?
this is an ancient form of the final noon. The other thing I like to here, I'll point this one
Is
out
there a way to
because
zoom in on this?
people will. So I mean I can't on my using the PowerPoint, but this here, the somics are kind of wild. They almost look
That looks
like
just like
medial
a mem.
mems,
Yeah,
right?
that would
And of course
completely
this
throw me
has
off.
the Sophet laments, which are beautiful.
There you go, Simone. Lamed Sulfate. Hell yeah.
So yeah. So anyway,
Bring
okay.
that back.
So I gotta move pretty quickly through this section here. So I want to draw your attention to 3 interesting features of this section of the text, starting in verse 11 and going to verse 15 in chapter 9. So here is how the text reads. Let me go back to this is how the text reads in the Masoretic text. Okay. Who is wise enough to understand this? To whom has the mouth of Yahweh spoken, so that they may declare it? Why is the land ruined and laid waste like a wilderness, so that no one passes through? And Yahweh says, because they have forsaken my law that I set before them, and have not obeyed my voice or walked in accordance with it, but have stubbornly followed their own hearts and gone after the Baalim, after the Baals, as their ancestors taught them. Therefore, thus says Yahweh Tsabaoth, Yahweh of armies, the God of Israel. I am feeding this people with wormwood and giving them poisonous water to drink. I will scatter them among the nations that neither they nor their ancestors have known, and I will send the sword after them until I have consumed them. So, the first thing I want to draw your attention to is this. Well, first of all, let's do this. Let's set some limitations on the text. And this is how you can see I've determined my placement of this fragment here. I believe this is fragment 12 on the left-hand side based on where this line is, because this is roughly whereabouts my column edge could be. You can go over it a little bit, or you can fall under it a little bit, but there are, you can't go very far over. Right here, it's probably hard to see, but this is actually the edge of a sheet. So this is where the sheet would have ended, and a new sheet was stitched on to this one. So you're definitely going any farther than this period. This is the very end of that's the maximum amount of space that you have to reconstruct anything in here. So the first thing I want to draw people's attention to is right here, close to the beginning of verse 11. It says, to whom has the mouth of Yahweh spoken so that they may declare it? Why is the land ruined and laid waste like a wilderness? So notice on this fragment, there's this tiny little hay here. It's about 2/3 the size of normal hays that appear on this manuscript. It's really small, and that's perhaps a little unusual. When you take a measurement of the distance of the dry lines, you're looking at about a space of 8.8 millimeters, which is a lot compared to the 7.5 or 8 millimeter average line space for these lines. So right away, this has me thinking, I wonder if we're dealing with an insertion here, some kind of scribal insertion. So when I worked my reconstruction out for this manuscript, I was able to reconstruct the text to say, sorry, where am I here? Why is the land ruined? And why is the land ruined? Basically, is what you got there, right at the edge here. You've got these three words, Vayegra Alma. There's not enough room. You can see the dalit and the hay of Avda laid waste, but there's not really enough room for it there, and it's really small. So it kind of looks to me like somebody's sort of scrunched it in here at the top.
You're running out of room, so your letters get tiny.
Yeah, could be that. Could be that. So you can actually work this clause out without that word, though, too. Why is this land ruined like a wilderness, instead of why is this land ruined, laid waste like a wilderness? It was just a thought I had, and I don't know if that's very compelling as an illustration of a different text. I don't personally think it is, but it's the active sort of work that's happening in this particular manuscript. There's
I have a
yes.
question.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, tengo una pregunta. So is it just the fact that these have been rolled up and kind of like crushed down a little that the lines are like wibble wobbly? Because I'm used to seeing the guidelines kind of scored into the manuscript. Is that a thing here, or is it just a feature of having been?
You can see some of the dry lines, right? There's one. See that one?
Okay, cool.
So But the
It's hard to
reason you've
see
got
'cause it's
you've
really
got
tiny.
some space, I know, I'm sorry about that. Like you've got some space here.
Mhm.
Some of this too, like over the course of time, some of the things warp and
Yeah.
shift
Okay.
a little bit. So, but some, and you're able to see some of that stuff. Like for instance, this particular, you can see the damage on the top part of this particular fragment, and it's warped a little bit. This line is
Mhm.
curved. So, this suggests to me that when it comes to anything surrounding this particular fragment, I can expect a little bit of funny stuff happening. Not so for this one. This one's really sharp and really clear.
Okay.
Same with like the text on most of this particular fragment here, right? So there's
Mhm.
you have to weigh all these features into consideration when you're doing reconstructive work. Um, so that's the first one. That's the least interesting of these. I've encountered another clear textual variant later in the text. So here is the reconstruction of what verse is this? I oftentimes forget to include verse numbers here, but this says, "Ko Amar Adonai Tzabaot Eloi Yisrael." Thus says the God of Israel, "Hineni me'achilam." Behold, I will give for food, or will get, or will make eat. I will cause them to eat. Et ha'am hazeh, this people.
Oof.
See, I will make this people eat la'ana, wormwood. All right. And then the next text that we expect to see is v'hashkitim. I will make them drink meida, bitter waters. So you expect that to appear on, sorry, my cursor is here, on this line
Mm.
here. All right. So I need a better look at that particular
Hey!
fragment.
Gorgeous.
And when I put Vahashkitim in, I don't know. Doesn't really look like
Doesn't
it works, does it? Like this is not evolve. And I wondered too, well, maybe this is part of a sheen,
Yeah, the
hush,
bottom of the sheen.
maybe
Yeah.
a cove here, but then I don't
Fine
know
then.
what to do with this, but that doesn't work with it. You need a hay here. So it's
Mhm.
just not, it's not working out. But if I put in merosh, fits almost perfectly.
Woo!
I think this is definitely what appears on the following line. But then what does that mean? That means that we've got Vahashkitim hanging all the way out here where it shouldn't be, beyond the margin, beyond the
Yeah,
edge
that's
of
not
the
gonna work.
sheet. As a matter of fact, that's
Yeah.
not going to work. So we have a problem with this text. As it turns out, there's a variant in this line. The Septuagint does not say, "Behold, I made this people eat wormwood and gave them bitter waters to drink." It says, "Behold, I made them eat wormwood and gave them
Huh.
bitter waters
Okay.
to drink." So maybe that's it. And I quite like that a lot better. So I think this is another example where the text, just like in, I talked about it very quickly in the previous column. I think this is a strong case here of a Septuagint variant appearing in this particular manuscript. And then I've got one
Cool.
more to illustrate to you here, and that's in the lines above where it says Vayamar. I'm gonna pull up the actual. It's hard to read my, oops. What did I do? Okay. Yeah. Um So this is go down here. I'm just reading this from the article that I wrote. So this, you have Vayelchu achere shererot beyo lavam va'achere. You've got right here. I'll just show you the extant text here. Where it is. There we go. You've got Vayelchu here, Achere. So this is um uh they walked after the madness, the shededot levam of their hearts. I've had to reconstruct this here. Shededot levam, and then it says ve'achre hava alim, and after the baalim. But again, I don't have room here for this. So this can't be what the text reads. And not only is it extending too far into the margin, if there was anything here,
runs off
I
the
would have
parchment.
expected to see it on the parchment too, right? Based
Yeah.
on the delimits of the line spacing. So I'm clearly dealing with another variant text here. Again, there is a Septuagint variant in this particular line of the text, but it's an expansion. It says Sheredot Halbra Lavam walked according to after the madness of their wicked heart. Sorry, it's Lachem Lavam Harab, your wicked heart. And after the Baalim. So that would be even longer. That's not going to fit. So at first I thought, well, maybe I don't need that second preposition there. It goes va'achere, it goes achere shererot, after the madness, lavam, of their heart, va'achere hava alim, and after the ba'alim. You can just say va'achere shererot lavam, vahavali, vahaba alim, sorry. And after the Baalim. That works. I would still expect maybe to see part of that final mem on the fragment if it was there. Not necessarily, but I don't know if I like that as much. And I think the Septuagint reading can actually help us understand what's happening here. So I think maybe this is a text that said, they walked after the madness of their wicked heart, with no mention of the Baalim.
Of the Baalim.
Which probably looks something like this. This is what the Septuagint text looks like. Achere shedadot lavam hara va'achere havalim. They went after their wicked hearts and after the Baals. The Masoretic text changed this, corrected this to read Achere shedadot lavam va'achere havalim. So just after the madness of their heart and after the Baalim. What if this was what the text originally read without any mention of the Baalim? The hara was retained by the writer of that Septuagint text, and he inserted the Baals, and then the hara got lost along the way by the time the Masoretic writer came along to copying this text. So this is kind of, I mean, it's like textual criticism in action here, really.
Yeah.
Is tracking the stages of development of a text like this. So it's interesting. It's an interesting manuscript. There's lots of things going on here if you're paying close attention and if you're doing your reconstructive work really rigorously. But it's clearly a manuscript that has some substantial, important differences from the Masoretic text, just in the little space that we've explored here, to the point that I don't really think that this is something that Tov, that we can agree with Emmanuel Tov on, that this is properly a Proto-Masoretic text. It seems like a manuscript that that wasn't. It's not close to a bunch of things that we have. So there we go. That's
Nice.
the book of Jeremiah in the Dead Sea Scrolls, and that's a lot of the work that I've done on this particular manuscript. Maybe the coolest of all the Jeremiah manuscripts, 4Q Jeremiah A,
I
because
love
it's
this
super
stuff.
fucking old. Yeah.
Mhm.
So
Old as
there we go.
balls.
Old as
Alright, we have
balls.
some stuff.
So
Snap Map and
nice.
Navigator for 5. Oh, I read that one already. JK.
You
I
did
forgot
read
to
that
scroll
one.
down just a little. JK.
Okay.
Okay. Once the opportunity arises, I want to ask
Oh,
Dr. Davis about 7Q5.
okay.
I saw your face light up.
7Q5 was so this is, and there's honestly there's not much to say. 7Q5 is a small, very small fragment of Greek text from Cave 7. Cave 7 is an interesting cave at Qumran because all the fragments recovered from there were written in Greek, every single one of them. So it looks like it was, part of its own sort of collection, maybe a collection within a collection. So one of the fragments from Cave 7, 7Q5, has preserved on it, I believe, the entire word "otain" in Hebrew, which is just a pronoun,
Mhm.
and then some letters belonging to some other words above and below that. There's not much there. And in the 1980s or the early 90s, what's his name now? I haven't thought about this in a while, but a scholar wrote up an article suggesting that this was a fragment from the Gospel of Mark because he was able to align the text with a section from Mark's Gospel. So this really would have been a first century. This really would have been a first century copy of the Gospel of Mark.
Oh, okay.
But
Interesting.
it's just, we could probably find a picture. Honestly, let's look it up. 7Q. Oh, you know what? I know where to find it. Here, let's just go to the Leon Levy archive library. Oh, why didn't it go? Go. You're supposed to. Why aren't you do things?
He's very
There.
boomer coded.
No, it's just not doing things. Okay. I will no, not that.
While you're doing that,
Shut
David
up,
Sinclair says, wasn't the most suggestive evidence for Mark just the word Kai on the fragment?
I think it was the pronoun. I could be wrong though. So let's go. I'll show you how to. This is the Leon Levy Dead Sea Scrolls Digital Library where you can look at all of them. Let's go to Cave 7, Qumran Cave 7. Let's go to 7Q5, 7Q unidentified. So it's not all these fragments, it's just the one, and it is this one here. Oh, you're right. There is the Kai, and
Put
then
that on the screen so the audience can see it.
is it? Oh my god, have I been doing this the whole time without it on the screen?
Yes.
Jesus Christ. Fuck.
Bless your heart.
I thought I was being so cool. I really was. Yeah, so I was wrong. It is Kai. You can see it there on the third line. But that's all you've got. You've got Kai with like a pay, I assume, of some sort.
My mom
then
is
you've
calling
got-
me. I will be right back.
All right. And then in the next line, you've got like a new with an eta, and then another eta in the line below that. So it's just like, there is not much here. And it was reconstructed. It was suggested that this could align with text from the Gospel of Mark. Sorry. Yeah. Let me backtrack and do the things that I was trying to do this is it. The Leon Levy Dead Sea Scrolls Digital Library. It's deadseascrolls.org.il. If you go to explore the archive, and you can browse by site, Qumran, Murabat, Nacho Hever Matzada. You can do a quick search where you just type in what you know you're looking for. You can look for just Hebrew manuscripts or Aramaic manuscripts or Greek manuscripts. So I just went to Cave 7, and that's what I came up with. And this is 7Q5, which is a series of fragments, but the one in particular is this one. All right, there you go. You got the whole show now. So, yeah. So a little bit of Greek text appearing on 5 lines, and no complete words beyond Kai. And they oh, I just about had it again. Shoot, it's driving me crazy that I can't think of the guy's name. But a scholar reconstructed this to suggest this could be from the Gospel of Matthew. And then one of my mentors, Dr. Peter Flint, reconstructed this exact same fragment to align with text from the Greek version of Enoch. And so I mean, it's almost certainly not the Gospel of Mark. It really is almost certainly not the Gospel of Mark. Maybe it's Enoch, but I think the point to draw from this is the kind of fragment that you could reconstruct with lots of different things. And to make the highly charged suggestion that this is a 1st century copy of the Gospel of Mark is just irresponsible, really. So yeah. So that's 7Q5. And that's the Leon Levy Dead Sea Scrolls digital library. I encourage everybody to go check it out. It's very cool. Everything is here. Those were some old, like those were like old pictures. Like if you look at like, let's go to this one, to this really interesting manuscript, The Vision of Samuel. There's actual color photographs of all the fragments, almost all the fragments, as well as infrared. So you can zoom right in on them. Look how sharp and clear all of that is. It's pretty remarkable.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. Now how do I get out of here? There we go. So
yeah, I've used this website before. Yeah.
It's a phenomenal website. All right. So powered by Google. And the photography was by NASA. So it's pretty great.
Oh no, that means it's a conspiracy.
All right.
It's a conspiracy. Also, my mom says hi.
Hi, Mom. I gotta go here.
I told her
quick,
we're learning very nerdy things. Yeah.
Yay. Let's finish.
Let me just get through Game Time Y for 2.
Thank
Thanks
you,
for
Game
the
Time Y.
information.
You're welcome.
How many of these are carbon or similar dated? If you know that, just ballpark.
Oh,
it.
yeah.
Many, most,
so,
none.
I could just answer that quickly. So there have been carbon date tests on about 25 manuscripts that have been published. There have been more recent carbon dating analysis on, I believe it's up to 80 of the manuscripts. Hasn't been published yet. We know a little bit of it. There was some of this came out in the +1 article from earlier this year, where they talked about the carbon dating of one of the manuscripts of the Book of Daniel, which looks like it could be older than we once anticipated, with a median in about 180 BCE. But that's the median, right? So, but there's more information that's going to come. Thanks for the question.
Okay. Lieutenant Method Navigator 5, if you showed that fragment to a paleontologist, they call it remarkably complete and preserved. Yeah, seriously. They're not used to getting a lot.
That's awesome.
Chuck, I have a related off topic where the scrolls, elements that are taken from animals without blemish.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
So, yeah. now because what we don't have a lot of like full manuscripts. We don't know the extent to which this practice was enforced, but yeah, like something like I have to go back and look, but I believe they were following these same prescriptions for preparation of vellum from pure animals. So
That seems the
most of them
most
are calf
likely,
skin,
especially with
by the
like
way.
obsessed with purity and stuff
Yeah.
that they are. That seems reasonable. David Sinclair,
Coolest
coolest
jigsaw
jigsaw puzzle
puzzle.
ever.
Damn fucking straight it is.
Transcending. It's absolutely
Except
fascinating.
half the pieces are missing and almost nothing actually lines up. So
Imagine a remake of Da Vinci Code, but with this. Seriously, I'd watch that.
yeah.
Dave for 5 beaver
Hey,
bucks. Yeah,
Dave.
space are fascinating. Cool. Have you been watching Pluribus? So good. Maybe do a stream on that. Love you, buddy.
Love you too, man. We'll see you soon. I'm gonna see Dave soon.
Nice. Look at this guy, so-called
Oh.
Dr. Kip. Does he even do research into the ancient Wargum? Not.
Sorry. Josh and I were chatting earlier today. That's supposed to be wardum, the Akkadian word for slave. Why the hell are you awake, Josh? He's in Scotland right now.
Oh,
yeah.
holidays, family time. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
So is that it?
I'm gonna
We
I'm
good?
gonna go fire up the candles in the menorah. So
All right. So the holidays are upon us. This is our last stream before I will be doing a stream on Christmas Day in the evening, because I'm working with one of the members of our community sets up every year
oh yeah.
a schedule for content creators to basically cover the entire block of time from the beginning of Christmas Eve to the end of Christmas Day. There is somebody streaming that you can watch. The holidays can be a difficult time for a lot of people if you're alone, if they get you down. There's going to be somebody
I've been going
to watch,
through it
and we're
this
going to
week,
be
boy.
passing the baton as we go. So I'll be on for a couple hours on Christmas Day in the
Woohoo!
evening, I believe, and then I'm gone for a week. So there will be nothing after that until the new year. I think we're doing Dapper's show tomorrow, though, right? I believe that's happening.
Debunking some more nonsense.
And right after this, I'm jumping right from here to go. And I am actually going to do this right this time. God damn it! I can do this. Fucking rights, I can do this. So I am going here.
Yes.
Right after this at 5 o'clock. This is happening.
Pacific. Yeah.
5 o'clock Pacific. Yes. In 25 minutes, I have to be here to participate in season 2, episode 5 of Star Trek
But don't wait
Endurance.
25 minutes. Go now.
I gotta go now. No, it's true.
Yeah.
I really need to get out of here. But the redirect for this stream will send you there. You can watch me pretend like I know what the fuck I'm doing in my first full TTRPG.
That's
And
me with
it's
everything
fun.
that's not Vampire the Masquerade. So yeah.
I'm enjoying myself.
Same.
But thank you guys. Thank you everyone for coming out and for sharing the afternoon with us, for indulging me in my favorite topic, the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Book of Jeremiah, reconstruction, textual variation in the Bible, and all of that. Have a wonderful weekend and a
Hot
fabulous
Shabbat Shalom.
holiday.
Happy holidays. All those
Yeah.
things.
Good night, all, and Hot Tikva.